Today, I'll be challenging the world's best AIs to make a Roblox simulator game to see which AI can make the best game. The first AI I'll be testing out is Google's Gemini. Alright, so this is going to be the prompt I'm going to be using for all of the AIs, not just Gemini. And after this, I'm going to give each of the AIs 3 prompts to fix any bugs that could be in the game. So first off, I'm telling all of the AIs that I want it to be a standard Roblox simulator game and include all features that a standard simulator game would have. Currency, shop, selling, and all kinds of things that are in normal simulators. Then I tell it that I want it to have at least an hour of progression and be fully balanced. Then I tell it that I want it to code absolutely everything. For the map and models, it has to give me instructions as to how to make them in a way where I'll have to do as little work as possible. So let's send it off and see what it makes. Alright, so Gemini sent back the code and I imported all of it, but Gemini actually attached some additional instructions which I'll follow very closely. So first, it wants me to set up the map. So it told me to delete the base plate and spawn location. Next, it's telling me to go to the toolbox and search for a low poly forest pack or a low poly island, and then take a couple of the decorations from there and put it onto the base plate. Alright, so I found a low poly island and I made it a lot bigger. Now I'm gonna add some decorations. Alright, so now I've pasted some trees around and I got these for the shop and the selling. I would have done more if it was on my own, but I'm trying to follow the AI's instructions as strictly as possible. On this step, it's telling me about a zone door, which means there's probably more than one zone in the game. And after checking the code, it looks like there's a desert and a moon zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically reskin this and make 2 more zones very quickly. So now I have a desert and a moon zone, and I've also added some really bad low poly bridges in between. So now I'm going to do what it tells me to do for the zone doors. So I just surrounded both the desert and the moon zones with this forest field I found on the toolbox, which honestly looks pretty cool. So next it's telling me to create some physical objects which serve some functionality for the game. It's telling me to make a spawn location, a sell part, a zone door, and a dummy for tools. Also, I just realized that grasslands was also a zone for some reason, so I just kind of added a zone here because I don't want to have to extend the map anymore. Alright, so I'm currently following Gemini's advice on making the shoes for this game, but I'm kind of confused since I'm pretty sure that what it's telling me to do won't work, but I'm going to try it anyway and we'll see if it works at the end. So next it's telling me to make the UI on my own, and if you recall, I actually told it to make the UI itself, so I'm going to use one of Gemini's corrections to tell it to make the UI on its own since it didn't follow my prompt very well. So I said, I want you to make the UI yourself in code, make the UI look clean and polished, and now we're gonna wait for its response. Alright, so now it's given me this pretty large file called UI Manager, and it's told me to put it in starter player script, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So now I've followed all of Gemini's instructions and done everything it's told me to do, so now theoretically the game should work. So I'm in, and the UI looks kinda weird, but not awful. I see there's a rebirth button, which means rebirths are in the game, and there's coins and steps. So right now I'm not getting any steps, so let's open the shop. So it looks like I need shoes to get steps, so I'm gonna get the basic shoes. It looks like they're free. I'm buying them and this nice little animation plays, but nothing happens, so I guess I'm gonna have to use another correction. So I just told it when I click to buy basic shoes, the animation plays in the UI, but I don't actually get them. So it just realized its mistake and it told me to put the tools folder inside of workspace when it's actually meant to go inside of replicated storage. So I've gone ahead and moved tools over to game assets and replicated storage. Let's see if it was fixed. So I go to the shop and I buy it. So now I actually get the basic shoes, which is great, but I'm walking and I'm not getting any steps, so I'm kind of confused. Okay, so it's not actually a walking simulator like I thought it was. It's another clicking simulator. You click and you get steps, which is a lot weirder than I thought it was, but fair enough. Let's see if the selling works. So the selling does work, but I definitely don't have enough for any of these upgrades, and the UI actually cuts off here, so I have no idea how much these cost. So I guess I'm gonna grind a little bit to see how long this takes. So I just opened this rebirth UI and it's stuck on my screen, which is kind of annoying. It looks like there's still quite a few bugs in this game. So I've been grinding this whole time and now I think I finally have enough to get the better shoes. Or actually it wasn't better shoes, it was a blue trail. Let's see if it works. I can't see it because of this UI on my screen. So I'm gonna go here and delete it. All right, so I've deleted the UI off my screen and it actually doesn't seem like it put the trail anywhere on my player. So it looks like this game has a lot of bugs. But Gemini has one more correction to fix everything. Alright, so I've just listed out the bugs, and this is Gemini's final correction, so hopefully it fixes all of these issues. Alright, so it looks like Gemini is fully done with its fixes. It went ahead and identified each flaw and fixed it all, and it even thanked me for making the bug report. But remember, this is Gemini's last correction, so if this doesn't fix the game, then Gemini's not going to get a very good rating from me. Alright, so I've gone ahead and made all of the changes Gemini told me to make, so let's see if the game works. So we're starting off and there's no UI anywhere. I'm not sure if it broke the UI manager or if I made a mistake, but the game isn't working. So I'm gonna check its steps one more time. So the game doesn't work with the changes it made, and since I'm only giving the AIs 3 corrections, I have to rate the game like this. So I was gonna have like a scorecard pop up and like be like, the game had this, but right now the game has absolutely no functionality, no playability, no anything, and I honestly expected a lot better from Gemini. So I'm gonna have to rate this game a 0 out of 10. Now let's move on to ChatGPT's game, which honestly surprised me. Alright, so we're back again with of course the same prompt as last time, and we'll be using ChatGPT's O3 model. So I'm actually completely shocked with ChatGPT's approach in a lot of ways. First off, it's decided to, instead of giving me code to actually put in the game, it's just decided to put something I would put in my toolbar on Roblox Studio. So I actually wouldn't have to do anything other than paste this, but it also didn't complete the file, which means it had this genius approach, but it already has to use one of its corrections. All right, so now it's giving me the full code, so I guess I'll paste it in. So it told me to put it in my command bar right here, so I'm gonna paste it in and hit enter. So nothing's been put in the workspace, but it says the game is complete, so I guess let's try it. So when I click with this empty wooden shovel tool, I do actually get coins, which is really interesting, and then it's made a bunch of other little base plates over here, so I guess let's check this out. So walking over here, it doesn't look like much happens, and I'm kind of confused with what to do, so I'm gonna use the other corrections to hopefully help ChatGPT refine this into an actual game. So I gave it this prompt, and I told it to include a shop menu with upgrades, rebirthing, and a model for the tools, so let's see what it does. Alright, so it just gave me a new version, let's see if this is any better. Alright, so I'm gonna do exactly what it said and paste it in the command bar. Alright, let's check it out. So already there's a lot more here. There's an upgrade tool, upgrade backpack, unlock next zone, and rebirth. So the wooden shovel does have a model now, which is pretty cool, I can't lie. So let's see what happens when I press this. So it doesn't look like much happens right now, but what I'm suspecting is there's a cost here that I don't actually know the cost to. So I'm gonna look at the code to see if I'm right. Alright, so I looked at the code and I found out the cost of the next shovel was 50. So let's see what happens when we hit upgrade tool now. And we get a stone shovel, which is the exact same texture, but it works and we get actually a lot more. So I'm not sure what the point of upgrading your backpack is or unlocking the next zone, since neither of these features are really utilized at all. So I'm a little bit confused about that, but I guess rebirthing does make sense, and rebirthing costs $1 million. So technically there is a lot of content here. So I'm going to use the last correction to just give a use to backpacks, give a use to unlocking the next zone, and display prices visually. Let's see if it can do it. All right, so I just gave O3 a couple improvements it can make. Let's see how it does. All right, O3 just finished its new version. Let's get this into Studio. All right, let's just paste it in the command bar and hit enter and hit play. All right, so the new model's a little goofy, but it's definitely better than it was. And it looks like we have some actual zones working here, which looks pretty cool. There's also a backpack system, which now this untitled button is what we used to sell, which is kind of mediocre, but not the worst thing in the world, especially since I made this whole game with just a couple sentences. So now I could upgrade and get my stone shovel, which has a different model, which is sick. So after a bit of grinding, I can now upgrade my backpack to the medium bag, which, as you can see, it upgrades my cargo as well, which is pretty cool. All right, and now I can get an iron shovel, which also has a different model compared to the other two. All right, after a bit of grinding, I can finally unlock the meadow, so let's see if the zones work. And it teleported me to a random one, so it didn't quite work, but it did teleport me to one of these. Kind of weird, but also pretty cool that it was able to do this. Even better, it was able to do this without me having to import any scripts. I didn't even think it was possible for it to do it in the way that it did. So I'm going to be rating these games on 3 factors: functionality, quality, and ease of use. For this game, functionality gets a 5 out of 5, since the game is perfectly functional and works great. As for quality, I'm going to give the game a 1 out of 3, because honestly, it doesn't look very good. And for ease of use, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 2, since it was incredibly easy to put into Studio and have something working. This means that the final score for ChatGPT's game is 8 out of 10. Let's see if Claude can even get close to that. All right, we're back again with Claude 4, and I've given it the exact same prompt, so let's see what it can do. All right, so I just got the script back, but it didn't separate the scripts, and it gave me 2 of them, but it just like, it didn't separate them properly, and its instructions here are like wrong. These lines aren't in between a comment. It's so confusing. I'm just gonna tell it to separate the scripts. All right, so I've submitted all of the scripts and I've followed its instructions, which are to put all of these platforms out. And for ease of use, Claude is already getting a 0 because this was really annoying to do and could have been done in code. All right, we got a pretty interesting UI. This is definitely a much better UI than anything else in the other games. So whenever I mine, I get a random item whenever I click click this button, and it looks like I get money really quick, so let's get an iron pickaxe. It looks like the game's bugging out a lot, as you can see here, and I can't get Claude to fix it, of course, because I had my usage limit. The teleport here doesn't seem to work, but it looks like each mine will have different types of ores you can get at it. So maybe when I spam the mine button, it caused some sort of backlog, and that's what's happening now, so I'm just gonna spam the sell button, I guess. All right, we're just gonna have to ignore this indicator. I just gave myself a bunch of coins so I can go and test out everything. All right, so it looks like teleporting to other mine areas doesn't seem to work. I think I'm gonna get the, yeah, I got the mega bag now, which also unlocks all these. Honestly, this UI looks really great. The teleporting doesn't really work, which is kind of a shame. That would have been really cool to see. And pets work too, which is also really cool. So yeah, I mean, there is an actual game here, although it is mostly in UIs. It does follow the standard simulator format. For this game, I'm gonna rate the functionality as 4 out of 5. I'm gonna give a quality rating of 3 out of 3, and for ease of use, I'm gonna give it a 0 out of 2, which means the final score for Claude is a 7 out of 10, meaning it was a close second to ChatGPT. So if there's any couple things you could take away from this video, the 2 things would be, 1, Gemini is terrible at making Roblox simulator games, and 2, you should subscribe to Luckman.